Hey there, everybody, and welcome to Work Should Feel Good, the show where your career growth meets your real life. I'm Diana Alt, and today my friend and coach, Terry Weaver, is back on the show for a conversation about what happens when life turns everything upside down on you, aka life is lifing, and the surprising lessons it can teach you about work, leadership, and community. Terry is a speaker, entrepreneur, and community builder who has spent many years helping people discover their thing and bring it to life. He's the founder of the Thing Conference, which I've been going to since 2020. I've only missed one, and it was because I was going to have brain surgery a couple days later. And also the host of the Making Elephants Fly podcast and author of a book by the same name. They are banger, if I do say so myself. Terry, welcome back to the show. You are only the second repeat guest.
Oh.
Who's
the other one?
Huh?
Who's the other one?
Angie Cowan.
In good company, then.
Yes, you are in good company.
I'm on Team
Angie was
Angie.
number 1, and then I said, hey, she should come back as number 50 whenever I had that earlier this year.
Yeah.
So she's definitely a good egg. So the Thing, we talked about the Thing last time on episode, I forgot what it is, 24 or something like that. But I don't think our conversation is going to be about that, although it may be centered a little bit around that, because you got lifed pretty hard in November of last year. And I want to kind of walk through what happened and how that's impacted you and your family and your business. So how do you want to kick this off? I know you've talked about this on more than one podcast.
Yeah. And it's weird because I do actually think it's important to talk about. I'm trying to not let it become my entire personality.
Yeah.
Because when things happen to us, sometimes that's a conversation everyone wants to have.
Yeah.
But I was in Orlando for the Thing. We had done our VVIP day. The conference starts on Tuesday night. If you buy a VVIP ticket, you were part of that. We went to dinner, had a very nice dinner. We spent the day in the presidential suite at the hotel, doing hot seats. And then the next day we went to the theme parks, and about 3/4 way through the day, something started to feel off for me. And we were in Orlando, Florida, and I was starting to have the chills. And
there's no time of year where you should have the chills in a theme park in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, and it definitely wasn't. But we were in a ride, and so I thought, well, maybe it's just real cold in this ride, because sometimes when you were sweaty and you come inside.
Yeah, true.
And it wasn't, November's kind of a nice time to be in Orlando. It's highs in the 70s, 80s, not 207 degrees like it probably is right now when we're recording this.
Yeah.
But something felt off, and it was kind of one of those things that's I had some stuff to go do, so we left early. It was a fiasco getting me out of the park because I was clearly weak. And it got to the point we got to the end of the park where I was like, let me just get a wheelchair, and tell my wife, you could push me out of here. Which that could have been an entire that looked more like an SNL skit than anything. We took the boat back to where we were because we had breakfast, and then came straight to the park. So she nearly pushed me in the water.
Oh, no.
That was fun. But we ended up at the next day. I was off through the whole night. I was having all kinds of issues. I was just not sleeping. And she's like, there's something really, really wrong. You need to go to the doctor. And of course, I'm like, babe, our conference starts
1 p.m.
Tomorrow. 1 p.m. There's a 10 o'clock. People are expecting me downstairs. And I started to slip pretty fast, pretty quickly. There are things I didn't even know that happened that she kind of shared me. It was like, ooh, yeah, no wonder you made me go. And I was just trying to power through it. And there was a point where it was clear there was no power. My body was literally powering down. And could barely walk. Something was off. So we got to take a nice ride in the ambulance to a local hospital, and that stay was pretty quick. I was in and out of that hospital about 12 hours and moved. They almost moved me by a life flight. Both part of the story I don't really tell.
For a little bit of reference, Terry got pulled out into the ambulance at 10 o'clock, and the event was scheduled to start at 1. And we'll get into that, but there was a lot of activity going on at the same
Well,
time. So
the main room was being set up. We'd already loaded
yeah,
everything in. We'd already done
like
them.
we had
But
dozens of people in town to have a conference. So
yeah, we're actually it's just supposed to start. The pre-conference was supposed to start right at that moment. At 10 was when the pre-conference.
oh yeah, I guess that's right.
That's where you
That
should have been.
immediately left my radar. So.
Right. And they started like I was in septic shock. I was in sepsis. But they didn't know why. And they chased 473 things to figure out what it was. They thought I had gotten something from swimming in the lake there or pond. I was like, I haven't been in the water, I promise. But they were convinced. They were convinced I had something called compartmental syndrome, which is what actually Lindsey Vonn had to deal with after her
yeah,
break. After
I know people have had that. It is
and
not
so,
awesome.
Yeah, that's like they cut parts of your leg out and stuff. They thought that's what I had. Turns out I just had the streptococcus virus, aka the same thing that gives you strep throat, inside my body, and it was just basically fighting all of my organs. Now, granted, everything was kind of at high stress for me, and I think you look back on these things in retrospect, and you kind of ask, okay, how did we get here? Right?
Yeah.
Like, how did this happen? The hotel we were with last year was incredibly uncooperative. There was some turmoil. I was in people's offices and they had their resumes up. You knew why they were stressing out on you, because they were clearly under stress. And my stress I have a feeling that something that had been in my body a while. My body was able to regulate it. My body was able to fight it. Our bodies are pretty powerful things when they work well. And I think just the stress of it all kind of came to a head on
Humans
the Toy
are
Story
interesting.
Mania ride of Hollywood Studios.
Toy Story Mania.
And then I literally just turned around and walked out of the ride. I was like,
wait, is that okay? I only speak like remedial Disney. Is that the Slinky ride?
No, that's the ride where you like shoot little, like you pull a string and it like shoots plates. And
Oh, I haven't been on that one.
yeah,
I haven't been
it's
on
a little
that one.
carnival. It's like a carnival game show.
Okay, cool.
I'm pretty sure I've taken you on that ride. You just don't remember.
Maybe I don't remember. We'll see.
Yeah. Our Disney days, I drag people who, a lot of the people I take to Disney are like Disney fan heads, and then there's like you who are like,
I'm like, why am I here? Oh, I need
are
a
we
Dole
doing?
Whip. I came for the Dole Whip.
came for the Dole Whip.
Safari. That's
And
my.
so
That's
they
my
moved
jam.
me to the other hospital in ICU, and quickly I was moved out, thinking, yeah, we figured this out. Here's what you need. We're gonna load you up on antibiotics. Which I think half of what made the situation worse is all the stuff they were giving me.
Yeah.
Between antibiotics and stool softeners, it took me a couple weeks just to get back to normal bodily functions again. Don't recommend that. Did lose a lot of weight, so that was a good thing. But I had sepsis, and
which can kill you. If you watch any episode of like ER, Grey's Anatomy, any of it, like when randomly people die, it is often sepsis. So
I never researched it that much because I knew how bad it was because I lived through it.
Yeah.
So I really didn't know that until I talked to Justin Shank.
Yeah, I was gonna say Justin Shank researched that for us.
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, you like had like immediately you're like a 50% chance of survival, and like every hour from the time that you had your first symptom, you lose an hour. You lose a percentage. So it's like he's like, you were probably at like a 73% chance of dying. I was like, A, I'm glad you researched that, and B, I'm glad you didn't call me and tell me that. And like, I didn't have Leslie had my phone. I don't even think my phone was at the hospital for the first couple of days.
Yeah.
Just because let's focus on getting Terry better. But quickly, once I started feeling better, because literally, we have the best medical system in the world, but it's still not perfect. I probably spent, now it took almost 10 days for my body, for my white blood cell count from the antibiotics, like for that to be in the right place.
Okay.
But most of those 10 days was just, let's do this test. Let's do this test. Let's make sure it's not your lungs. Let's make sure you don't have something going on in your intestines. Let's make sure you don't have something going on in your kidneys. And let's scan your heart. And ever since I've been home, they've done a lot of those tests again, just to be like, the ones they medicated me for coming out of the hospital, the doctors were like, let's check it again. And so since then I've had every,
You took enough. So they basically had to try to get the infection under control and then see what the collateral damage was in
yes.
terms of what's going on with your organs and how do you fix anything that's awry, right?
Yep.
And you had enough pills that, like, if you picked up Terry and shook him, he would rattle.
Yeah. No, I think the American medical system, like, I think there's a magic number of like minimum pills that they want us all to be on by the time we're 50. And, we have enough friends that are woo that you end up on a couple of supplements or two. So, between this, my over the counter vitamins, and
You
during
need your
COVID,
turmeric and some apple cider vinegar.
I've got my apple cider vinegar, and I've got
I was kidding, but I do take about the vinegar, but I do take
the
turmeric.
apple cider vinegar, and I take the during COVID, your cousin, I was like, okay, you're working through COVID in an ER, and I was around people that was about the same time we were going to do the thing, and I was like, what vitamins are you taking to keep your body well right now? And she's like, here, take this, and I was like, and I haven't stopped taking that since, because I was like, I've mostly stayed, I've caught a couple of glimpses of COVID, but nothing really bad. So I'm like, I'm gonna that advice worked. So it was like zinc,
Yeah.
and so I've got those things that I take, and then just the normal like allergy pills, and then you add, the blood pressure, whatever whatever they start giving you, and they give you one, and then they need to give you another, and then now you're calcium deficient. Now you need less,
Yeah.
But
You're taking medications to treat the
to
medications
treat the medications
that are treating the medical condition
that you no longer have.
Right.
But a lot of gratitude just coming out of that. That one, I survived. It's a lot of us struggle with like, why are we here? What's our purpose? And we forget the good that we actually do. And it was at the same time, and Diana can tell you this side of the story, my event went on without me, which is maybe the coolest part of this story. Because that was one of the first questions I asked is, what happened?
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, Diana and Justin and
Yeah, we can go there. So while Terry and his wife and assorted family members that came to town and friends that are local, Terry and Leslie live in Nashville, but we were in Orlando for the conference. They have a lot of friends down there too. But 10 o'clock, Terry is carted out. And at the same time, like right there's a small group of us that are looking at each other going, what do we do now? And Justin Schenk, who will be on the show soon, Angie Callan, who we mentioned earlier, that's been on the show, Ryan and Mike Brennan. Everybody's been on the show except Ian, and he's booked too. But this group of people just said, what are we going to do about this? Because you're in do we cancel the conference? Do we delay it and start, pick it up on Saturday? Because we had no idea if this was Terry goes to the hospital and gets IV fluids and is all better by 10 o'clock the next morning, or if something else was going on. And we made the call in part because Angie and Justin both had experience running events, that we needed to do it because you had basically made a commitment to people when they bought the ticket that there was going to be a conference. So we decided we were going to have a conference. And it was one of the most interesting leadership experiences we ever had because we had 3 hours to run a VIP session, which another speaker was doing, fortunately. And then we had to figure out how do we pivot for the slots that Terry and Leslie were speaking that day. Some of the information was on Terry's laptop that we didn't necessarily have access to, like different process things like that. But we threw an event together, and it was really good and kind of a wild focusing experience for those of us that have been involved in this community for a long time, because it was clear we needed to do it. It was clear we wanted to do it. It was clear we had to make decisions really fast. And it also was clear there is not a single minute for bullshit ego shenanigans. to be rearing its ugly head in the middle of this. So we just had to do the thing and check in with each other a couple times a day on what's the right thing for the next session,
how is this
what's going to
going?
go on, how is this going, the whole 9 yards. So,
And I do think as people were watching it from afar, people were like, wait, you're in the hospital and your event just happened like without you? Like,
yeah.
and one of the things you start talking, you know, I know you've been in both seats in the hospital room.
Yes.
You've been the one in the bed and you've been the one in the chair going, what in the actual hell is going on right now? And what does this mean for my life?
Correct.
And you know, one of the things I began to think about, and it's always been at the front of my mind, is legacy. And it was a really easy thought process for me because I'd had that thought process and I'd thought about the process. You know, one of the most uncomfortable things I've made my people do over the years is actually write their obituary. So
0 out of 10, do not recommend. It's not fun.
It's
but also 10 out of 10.
The process is 0 out of 10, but because you've actually had to write your husband's obituary, so like you've had too much experience in that, you know.
Yeah.
I've had to write my father-in-law's obituary, but a lot of us live life with zero intention, you know, and I really believe firmly in Stephen Covey's, you know, begin with the end in mind. Because I had done that, and because I knew what I wanted my life to be about, that I knew that I wanted my legacy to be in people, not things. I was actually able to see something because I'm still here that a lot of people that will happen at their funeral and they won't actually be there present for it.
Yeah.
You guys, in a lot of ways, actually what you were doing was better than a funeral because you were showing like the impact that I'd had in your life, what you had learned from me. You knew that, you know, it sucked. Sure. You faced adversity of like, do we do this? Do we not do this? How do we do this? Like, and I knew I had zero ego about like, oh, they don't even need me anymore. They don't need me because I knew that wasn't the case. I knew that I was still needed. I knew I was still valued. I knew the things that were not going to be the same without me in the room, but I knew that we could still deliver something. And I was able to really look back and see, man, this is what legacy is like. And as I build my life now, I want to create more things that look like. I want to restructure my life and my business and do some things I've been talking about doing since 2018, 2019 that I just haven't gotten around to because it's uncomfortable and like it takes time and it's, you know, the technology's not always there to support some of the visions you want to do, but sometimes you really have to realize that the legacy matters more than like getting the process right.
Yeah.
That, you know, sure, it'd be great if we could figure out the systems and get the back end of this figured out, but sometimes you just have to do it and do it messy. And you guys definitely did that event messy. Like, as I looked at pictures, you know, I'm sitting there going, oh, the dang, you know, the backdrop was backwards. But, you know, nobody comes to an event
I've never asked you about, like, for all the times that we talk, I've never asked you what you observed as you went back and looked at pictures or video or things from that event. So
yeah, that was one of the first thing I noticed is like, why is the wrong? Because we have a 2-sided backstage background that was wrong, and I think there was some stuff that the hotel was. I think there was a blue stage skirt, not a black one, that was supposed to be there, and that's an example of like, you know, you're working with the wrong people when they don't listen to what they say. They kind of just did what they wanted to do, not what I asked them to do.
Yeah,
which is a lot of times what happens when you work with people that are out of alignment for you is they. But you guys did all of the right things. I mean, the things that mattered. You know, nobody's going to write a complaint card about
a blue stage skirt.
Right.
They will write they will write a complaint card if you cancel one day of a 3-day event. Whenever they paid to come to a 3-day event, they will write a complaint card if everybody's running around like chickens with their head cut off or they don't have the right communication and things like that. So
And I'm
Um,
sure, and I think everybody had a general understanding. I mean, I heard from so many people, and there was also a lot of people that I didn't hear from. Um, and obviously, we don't always. I'm pretty public with my life, but there are some things I didn't share. You know, like there are struggles that we had during that time, and like the business is just now, back where
where you
it
want it.
needs to be,
Yeah.
and you know, I was able to take a couple of months off without going to doctor's appointments, rather than there were times when I had 3 in a week. Um,
It's really hard too, because like I had surgery in August 1st of last year, and I knew I was gonna have to be off. I had 3 months of medical leave, basically. I had been told 2, but my surgery got delayed, and I was kinda strung out, so I didn't work that last month because I had to basically shut down a coaching practice and figure out how I was gonna handle all my clients. And it takes a long time. Like when you're in a corporate job, you file for your short term disability, you leave before your surgery, you stay out as long as you need to stay out, you come back, you know, for people that have FMLA or bosses that don't suck, companies that don't suck, you walk back into your job and your revenue, aka your paycheck, basically if it takes a hit, it's like we're getting paid 2/3 of salary instead of full salary because that's what the short-term disability is. And for me, it took a year almost to get back to where my revenue was about where it was before the surgery.
and
So
for also my energy, one of the
true.
that process for me was
I
a
feel like
real
my
zap.
energy came back 9 months in.
Yeah, mine came back just right before we did the thing Nashville. I felt like I was. Now, granted, I still don't feel like I'm as good as I have been in the past. I'm better than I was before I went in the hospital. I'll tell you that. Um,
Yeah.
and
Um,
continuing to get better and get healthier and pay more attention to those things. Um,
so one of the things I'm curious about is you're a very you have protector vibes in general in your life. A little bit of it is that Enneagram 8, I'm going to take care of my people thing that you and I both have. But I have not seen very many times when you really had to let people help you, either
Mm.
in business or personally, like you did after this whole sepsis knocked you out.
yeah,
And it wasn't like a couple days. It's like still to a certain degree going on. What was the hardest thing for you about letting other people take care of you?
oddly, I didn't really have another option. I
Did you
think
find that cuz clearly when you were in the hospital, that makes sense. But what about after you got out and you were like maybe a few weeks or a couple of months
yes,
after you were
I
out of the
got out
hospital? Was it difficult?
the beginning of Thanksgiving, in right around thanks before Thanksgiving, and we knew, okay, let's not even try to fly back on Thanksgiving. Let's wait till Thanksgiving travel's over and fly back a week later.
Mhm.
So my good friend Logan has an Airbnb in Orlando, and we stayed there for like 10 days or a week. And that might be the best thing I've ever done in my life. Of just Leslie sat in the hot tub, I sat in a pool chair in the shade. Um, and other than getting up because the stool softeners were still doing their job for that week.
Thank you for sharing
Yeah, no, like people like, what's the worst side effect? And I was like,
that.
so now if everybody says if anybody offers that in a hospital for me to ever again, they're gonna probably have to Velcro me to a bed because like and,
It's a
and, and
lot.
and here's the deal. And here's I know in a business professional setting that's like TMI, right? But I want to be transparent and honest as much. I mean, there's details I'm not going to share, but there's a couple things I can share because I want you to know that I think people forget what the reality of how it was. When I got out of the hospital, I had to use a walker. Super
Yeah.
humbling. And our friend Linda, who's actually has just I think just gotten out of the hospital with similar situation, right? Like, um, and I was actually as I'm grabbing the walker, I'm thinking of like, okay, if she could do it, I could do it. If she can power through, I can power through. That was literally, I mean, she was inspiring to me. She's someone that's in our community that's significantly older than I am and has lived a lot of life, and she's still powering through and showing up. And so I needed a walker for about the first 10 days or so. When we came back home, I used the chair rails to walk up the stairs without a walker. It was kind of the first set of stairs I've actually had to use, other than like one step in and out of the house kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, but I knew that like sleeping in my bed was going to be a problem because we have kind of a taller bed. So for that time that I was here, right until right before we left to go to Florida again to kind of do some sabbaticaling and relaxing in a beach condo and to go like experience some things to kind of refill our mind and our spirit as well. Um, like I couldn't get my own bed for 6 weeks.
Gosh.
Um, so there were some people that were like, I didn't hear from you during that time, and I'm like, I didn't have the energy to like physically get in and out of my bed. Like I was on the couch because the couch I knew how to get in and out of our couch that sits lower. So we had a special mattress pad, and like we bought one of those foam mattress protectors and memory foam things and cut that. We went X-Acto knife on that sucker. Because one of the worst side effects out of the hospital for me was my tailbone sitting on my, on the weight of my body on my butt in the hospital.
For days and days and days.
I didn't get out of bed for 10 plus days. I was like, some people did everything for me. And so like my body was fighting, but that bed was fighting against my body. That bed gave me wounds. That bed took my strength. Now they had upgraded me to like kind of a new robotic kind of bed that kind of moved, so so it lessened some of that. But still, my sitting was painful. In fact, we had to buy me another chair because I wanted to get off the couch, and we cut up a piece of that mattress pad that we bought on Amazon and put it in the chair, right? So
Yeah.
everything was padded, so there was nowhere that there wasn't. I mean, I had my own padding, but I needed more. Um, and so like a lot of that season was really hard just physically.
What
Um,
was so interesting to me is how it took, 2 weeks in the hospital and another week or two in Orlando, and then 6 weeks where you're sleeping on the bed and like all that stuff. But it was not very far into it that your brain lit up.
oh, absolutely.
And suddenly strategies and plans and things were just pouring out of you, which was kind of funny because
Well, because you guys had just finished, and
we
I'm
were just
texting
like,
you.
I'm exhausted. I just ran your event. Also,
Shut up,
our
leave me
friend was
alone.
sick. What are we doing? Yeah, stop it.
And they
Stop
wanted to get me out of
planning
the
the next
hospital
event whenever we're
because
not recovered from the first event.
they wanted
So,
to get me out of the hospital because I approached it with a lot of humor. You know, we're in the it's one of my favorite stories to tell. I'm in the ICU, and most of your nurses in the hospital are normally in your rotation are normally female, well, younger
yeah.
female. That's it's a guy. It's kind of a weird thing, but this one guy was like a big like he looked like he would have been in like a '90s buddy comedy, like big Jamaican dude, like
Oh, man.
girthy man.
Priceless.
Yeah, like it's 5:30. They've gotten me up in the morning, and if you know me, I'm not up at 5:30 in the morning for any reason. Um, and I'm laughing about it. And I was like, well, there are a lot of people that would pay good money to have a sponge bath from a Jamaican at 5:30 in the morning because they didn't want to pass you on. The shift changed at 7, right? So they didn't want literally to pass your shiz on to the next person. So
Yeah.
it was his responsibility during his shift, and I slept most of it because I was right about when I was starting to kind of like. And yeah, my mind did come alive. Like I started to get because I had nothing else to do. Um,
I experienced the same thing whenever I was about a month into like 3 to 4 weeks after my surgery. my brain started firing on all cylinders,
Oh
but
yeah.
my body was like, "Can we do more Netflix now?" So, they've kind of fought with each other for a few weeks until I started coming out of the strength. It's wild, and, um, as a person who I live in my brain more than I live in my body, like, I've never been sporty, not into that kinda stuff. I don't have that same kind of mind-body connection that a lot of athletes and things have. And so to actually have to pay attention to what my body could carry me to do was very interesting. And you had an even more debilitating situation because I wasn't in a hospital for 10 days, unable to leave the bed. You were.
Yeah. And
So
it
I
was
want to, I want
I
to,
was in ICU for 10 days and in the hospital
yeah,
for a few
that's a
more.
lot.
So it was like my strength was, like going up and down stairs required like me to grab onto something to pull me up.
Yeah.
Um, like I wasn't walking the dog with Leslie until we got back from Florida.
Oof.
Um, so when we went to Florida and you and Ryan and some other friends of ours met us down there, I actually had about 10 days to just she sat on the balcony, looked at the ocean, and I sat on the couch, put my feet up, and relaxed. And that was kind of the moment where I like physically like I started to get it back. My energy was still what's interesting, Diana, is like I found that like for during this season that people recharged my energy
Hmm.
and not necessarily tasks. And so I had to learn to kind of shift. And most of my work I do is in and with people.
Yeah.
Um
You've designed your work that way.
yeah, and so as I'm coming out of this, I'm also thinking of designing like I also want more of that, right? Like
Hmm.
um I don't want to go back and I don't want to go back and create more life that exists outside of more work that's not, we talk a lot about alignment, and for me, I know my mind is the best deliverable I can give you.
Yeah.
Like,
And it's really interesting when you realize that because I've been thinking about that a lot lately too. The degree to which there's so much that people love to talk about passive income. Have the digital product, have the e-commerce store that sells itself, or you throw ad money behind or whatever. But the thing that I am the best at is figuring out what the right problem is, which means the deliverable ends up being my brain. And you're very much the same. You always say you draw maps.
yeah.
So,
Well, but I'm also realized in this process, like you did, that I do need to have products
yeah,
that work on my behalf when I'm not working.
yeah,
And so I'm in the process of building a community, something I've been literally legitimately talking about doing since the logo is hung in my office since 2020. But I
yeah,
think the sign for the brand came when you were at my house in 2020,
yeah.
for a VIP day, and um,
So let's
it's just
kind of go into this because one of the things that I find really interesting when you have a major life thing, whether it's a health thing or somebody has a baby or whatever it is that really makes you go, "Whoa, things are different now." Like I need to kind of pull myself out of this. You get pulled out of the status quo. What are some things that are really different in your mindset about how to approach your work and your relationships with people? And what are some things that are still the same after this harrowing situation you went through?
well, for one, my tolerance for BS is pretty. It, it it's gone from 0 to like negative 272. Right? Like I never have really wanted to deal with people's nonsense, right? Like, and so, one of the unfortunate parts of like coaching people and doing consulting, our buddy Rachel Pierce and I were even talking about this the other day that, a lot of times consulting sometimes looks like you're arguing with people. You're
Yeah.
trying to convince people to do something. And I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not. Like,
I
if you
can't
want me
want
to,
this for you more than you want it for
yeah, and
yourself
I've always
is a
said
thing
that.
you say a lot.
You know,
Yeah.
I can't want this for you more than you want it for you. And I have you know, you talk about my ability to, you know, you and I talk a lot about maps. You know, I have an ability to see the potential that I think people could reach, right? When I see somebody, I see their gifts, I see their collective talents that they have, whether it's, you know, strategy or communication or writing or, um, you know, a lot of people have a mix of all of those three, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, I see the potential for them to, you know, impact a lot of people, but a lot of times they don't. And I find myself, you know, like I always go back to that moment. Like I was, you know, you and I are similar ages, you know, and we were kind of the generation that like our parents dropped us off at the mall, and the mall had like a food court and like a movie theater and
You had a
like
slice at the Zabaro and you had to go to Orange Julius.
Orange Julius and Sbarro. Like there was a your parents could leave you at the mall, and like the mall was just took care of
Your
you.
babysitter.
Yeah, like we're Gen Xers, so like we were feral. We were running around the mall. You know, ours had a Bennigan's. That was kind of our like go-to place back in the day, rocking that Monte Cristo sandwich, which apparently is making a comeback. Um, but there's always a map when you go to the mall that says you are here. There's a big giant sign on the map that says that. And you know, one of the first things I like to do with people is like, let's assess where we are. Because a lot of times, and you do that work in people's with a career, like we can't get you anywhere if we don't know where you're at on this map. And then the
Also,
next
I
thing we've
need
got
to
to
plug an address into the GPS.
right, and the next thing we've got to know is figure out where you're right. Like you've got to know where you're going. You've got to know where you want to go, and it's not. And sometimes the map can get really specific, right? Like you need to turn, you know, like GPS level, right?
Yeah.
But in reality, most of the time, us drawing maps is go. You know, if you ever get like directions from a good old boy in a farm community, they're like, hey, you go down to the Jones's Red Barn and hang a left, and I'll be at that gas station. You meet me there, right? Like
Yeah.
that's kind of what
It's the
drawing.
one past the oak tree that had the lightning strike.
Yeah, you'll see it. It'll be
Not
right
the
there.
one, not
You
the
can't
other
miss it.
one. Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of it is just a series of next best steps, right? Like a series of like, you need to go, this is where you are, and you need to go to these next places. And so, you know, I'm using those same skills and kind of building back what I want. Um, I I have this effect on people, Diana, and I know you've caught wind of this being around it enough that I have a lot of people that I work with that end up wanting to tear it all down because they've come to me and they've built something and they realized this is not what I wanted to build. You deal with that with people who come to you with their careers and like, I went to college for this, I planned my whole path. This was the plan, and I got here and it's not where I wanted to go.
I see that a lot. And I also see people have a lot of difficulty letting go of that plan. Like you're a lot more likely to hear someone say, I want to burn it all down than I am to hear someone say that they want to make a major, major, major shift because a lot of my clients are more beholden to the gold watch or the what they say I should do than entrepreneurs by nature are. So, but yeah, it's a thing there's just different versions of it and different degrees of it that you and I deal with our people. So, you know, I remember whenever you were getting out of the hospital, I remember thinking, well, you have an event on the books in June. How in the hell are you going to do that? Because when we were researching about sepsis, we figured out, this could take 12 to 18 months to be back in action. And yet you threw an event in June. And it was arguably one of the best ones that you've ever done. What do you think made that happen? Because it was damn good.
I think a couple of things. One, like you said, my mind was working well, right? And so I've learned to work from the couch, Diana. Like part of it, I've had to have my feet up a lot, and so
Yeah.
because I was dealing with some just like water retention and swelling from all of that, and like thank God that stuff's kind of back under
Ugh.
control, and like, but I learned I learned through this process that rest might be the most important part of our work.
Yes.
And I've even changed how I end my day now. I used to just work, 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 shut the laptop and go to bed. Well, turns out that's a bad way to get sleep
For sure.
because then you get to bed, and I still get to bed and my mind's on fire, right? Don't get me. I mean, I I put 3 or 4 things in my talk for November. I had 3 or 4 ideas walking down the stairs from upstairs to go to bed last night. I was like, "Daggone it, let me get them. Let me get them out of my head and get it. Let
Yes.
me let me let chat handle these until I get back to them tomorrow." Um, and so I've shifted a lot of things like that in my life, and so that's paid dividends, right? Obviously, I had the help of community, you and Ryan and a few others in different ways, much smaller ways, but you and Ryan definitely stepped up in really big ways to help and to serve, and you kind of knew my weaknesses as well. I'm good at a lot of things. There's a lot of things I'm not good at. Um, and I tend to not be the king of systems. Um, just because I try to run like a simple business, like um, that's kind of my process, and you know, I I tend to. It's funny. I've learned a lot by being on my HOA board, which I'm not sure why I said yes, except for two or three people basically said, "Hey, if you don't run, we're going to nominate you, and we're going to get you enough votes, and you're going to have to do it." I was like, "Sweet, I'll do it." And what nobody tells you is you can't is that once you have this big meeting and everybody gets on the HOA, and then you have to like rerun. What they don't tell you is no one's going to ever show up for those meetings. So
Right.
technically, you're on the board until you basically quit,
Right.
and then
My
they'll just
mom did that. She was the secretary treasurer of her HOA board for 1 billion years.
yeah. I think that's
Um,
technically my title. We all there's no hierarchy. But one of
yeah.
the things I've learned, and this is really really interesting, is we have to hire vendors to do things, right?
Yeah.
And some of them are like the good old boy that power washes stuff,
Yes.
but a lot of them are like multi-million dollar landscaping companies. You know,
Yes.
for our HOA, I think our landscaping contract is like $92,000 a year. That's a lot of grass mowing.
Yeah.
But we're in a neighborhood of like 600 homes, so it
Yeah,
makes
you have a
sense.
pretty big neighborhood.
But they've got all the common areas, and they got to, put the flowers in the beds at the beginning and make sure all that's done right. And so, but for the most part, most of these companies, almost every vendor we have is awful. They require a great deal of babysitting. And, one of the things you got to learn, whether you wanted to or not, is that so do people that speak at events.
Yeah.
Um,
So for
Adulting isn't something
yeah.
that we all do very well. And so, like, my kind of way of dealing with it is just like, I'm not going to babysit you. If I have to babysit you, we won't be friends. And so you signed up to help with that process, and you actually made that a much richer process and more. I'm not insinuating at all that you were a babysitter. That was the last thing you did. You set up systems and processes and help create an experience so that those people felt cared for and loved for, and because I'm one of those people that, like, when I my process, you know this because you've had to live through it, is I ask you to speak at the thing, and I'm like, hey, can you speak at the thing? I'd love you to do this. And you say, yeah, I'm going to speak on this. That's cool. And I go, sweet, bro. Here are the dates. Here's the link to book your hotel room. We'll see you in Orlando. You're an adult. I had to do those things, so I just assumed you could. It turns out a lot of people can't. It turns out a lot of people can't even read an email. As we've had
Yeah.
to learn the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
So to
so
catch everybody up, because we kind of skipped over this part. So
we skipped
Terry
over part.
mentioned that Ryan and I had helped a lot with things for the June event, and we're helping for the Nashville event. Which, you guys, if you are contemplating a thing, if you're already building a thing, whether it's full time or on the side, this is one of the most interesting blends of inspiration, but also teaching practical things of any conference that I've been to. It's why I keep going to it and why I'm on the stage whenever Terry invites me to be. But Ryan managed all the tech and systems on the back end, including completely ripping out like the registration system, the checkout system, the affiliate system, like a bunch of stuff that the average user doesn't think about whenever they sign up for a ticket. And then I worked with the speakers during the event in November whenever, somebody had to cat herd the speakers, especially the ones that were new and didn't know anybody. We had to take care of them. And I ended up taking responsibility for that for the 2026 events. And it is interesting to see the different mindsets that people have about working with an event team and what it's like for 3 stubborn people, because Terry and I are stubborn and Ryan is stubborn in his own way, trying to make the thing work. But the mission is, let's have a killer event. So we aligned on that mission. One question I have for you is, in the past, like, because of your strong belief that people should just be freaking adults, it wasn't just that you're not as strong at systems and processes. It was that you almost were like, I'm going to be a little bit of the anti-event guy. Like, it was almost on principle that some of the things you weren't doing because you believe people should be adults. And I gave you the information and you changed your tune on that and you really embraced it, which there are people in the world that would be surprised to hear that out of Terry Weaver. What made the difference?
I let people do what if you're gonna come alongside me and do something, I don't want to have to babysit you either. So if you say you want to do something, I'm gonna let you do it. If you have if I start to see where there are things I stood with on principle,
Mm-hmm.
we do something that annoys the snot out of a lot of people, that we don't release the schedule in mass. We have at different degrees. You know when a session is, but you don't always know what.
You don't know that John Doe is going to be from 10 to 10:45 a.m. on the second day of the conference exactly.
No.
Not even John Doe knows that.
Yeah, and we've done that in the past, but here's the side effect of doing that is what happens is people will write somebody off and think, I don't need that in my business right now.
Mm-hmm.
And had they done that, they'd have missed out on someone that could have really, ego is the thing that actually is keeping most people from succeeding.
Yes.
I heard somebody say that they didn't, the table they sat at one day, they didn't get any connections. I was like, well, the other 2 people have done 6 figures of business together. What were you doing?
Right.
Right? Like, and that's not to say that everybody's going to get that experience. I mean, our friend Anik Singal would want me to tell you that these results aren't typical, right?
Yeah.
But people are going to win. And, one of the things that I loved about the U.S. soccer's run that didn't turn out so well for the World Cup is, why not us? Why can't you be the one that goes to the event and like changes your life?
Yeah.
And, I want to be I want to be that person. I want to be the event that looks different. And yeah, we've made some weird decisions. We've made some unpopular decisions, but I've embraced letting it be. I know. I mean, we've been doing this 10 years. That's a long time to do one specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, a lot has changed in the world in 10 years.
Yeah.
We're a lot more adversarial toward each other. The world's a lot noisier than it was 10 years ago. People are more busy. There's more things calling for our attention than ever before. But also at the same time, less, right? Like, from a media perspective, there was, 10 years ago, there was, one or two social media platforms. And now there's more than we could ever count.
Yeah. For sure. So one thing I would say is that I noticed is that thing that you have historically had, where sometimes and that you don't want to do anymore. Like that you've acknowledged I can't believe in you more than you believe in yourself, but there was a time where you did spend a lot of your energy on that. And something I've noticed in you over the last couple years, but really in the last 7 months since the great sepsis incident of 2025, is that you are not letting the people that didn't believe in themselves and didn't trust you and didn't fulfill whatever they said that they were going to do for you or themselves be a distraction. Now you're looking for the people that are going to do the thing, are going to say they're going to do the thing, and then prove that they're going to do the thing. And it earned you more of a say, more of a deeper connection in the community. I feel more connected to this group of people I've been part of since 2019 than I did 8 months ago.
I can only serve the people in front of me.
Yeah.
A lot of times we look almost with like, a lot of times the people that aren't there are distracting. And there's always people who bought a ticket that didn't show up that I'm just like, how did that happen? Like what made that process work? You bought a ticket, you didn't get on a plane. Or there are people who lived in Nashville that didn't come who bought tickets. No, they had some life things happen, I found out, but
I missed a conference that I bought a ticket for in June, but it was because I had too many things get stacked up and it was $100 ticket, and I decided that I needed to do something in my business, but don't make that a regular practice. So,
no, but a lot of people do. A lot of people, they do the same thing with coaching programs.
Yeah.
Or they show up poorly. But I've had to shift. I care deeply about the work that I do. And one of the most dangerous things is I care about humans, right? Like, and I really struggle with people who I hurt for the people that I can't help.
Yeah.
But I've had to put that on them, not on me.
That's a change that I've been making in myself too, because I will make myself absolutely crazy if I don't.
I could worry myself literally sick, and I might have, right? Over people who weren't showing up.
Yeah.
And the reality is, I have to understand it's not that they're not showing up for me. It's not that they're not showing up for the community. They're not showing up for themselves.
Yeah.
And I can't fix that for them.
Yeah. One question I often ask my coaching clients is, what is it going to take to get you to pick yourself?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because so often people are picking their boss or their spouse. And I'm not saying don't pick your spouse, but like if you are constantly picking everybody else over your own needs, you can't be a good partner or a good father, mother, sister, friend. You just can't do it. So I ask that question a lot.
My
So,
talk that I did in 2019, which was before you were around at the thing LA, it was the last. It was actually no, it was 2018 was when we did that. Was going all in on you. You know, what would it look like if you put all the chips on the table and believed in yourself?
um, funny story that you released as a podcast episode.
I did.
And it was one of the things. So I met Terry because he was on my friend Scott's podcast. And I was like, ooh, I like what this guy has to say. So I started listening to his podcast and following him on social media and heard about his event. And then the two of the biggest things that made me decide I wanted to sign up for the thing when I hadn't even met anybody in person were number one, a podcast episode you did with David Dollar, Aurora Gregory, and Chad Pennycoff, where they talked about their experience going to the thing. And they said that I can't remember, they all kind of agreed with this, but one of the things that was said is it was the conference that you go to and you feel like you have legitimate connections with pretty much everybody that you met, instead of maybe you'll talk to one or two of the people that you met in the future. And then the other one is that you had released that talk from the thing LA as a podcast episode. And I was like, let's do that. So the combination of that and some other things made me buy a VVIP ticket before I'd ever technically met you. So if you guys are wondering about the thing, you can go to thethingorlando.com and see more information, see what the ticket levels are. The dates for 2026 are November 13th through the 15th for the main
Correct.
thing. Is that right?
That's the main thing. Yeah.
And it's in Orlando at a Hyatt place. So it's not like a ridiculously, insanely expensive Disney resort kind of situation. If you decide to sign up, if you want to talk to either of us about it, all of our social handles will be in the show notes. And you should definitely use the code I'm with Diana and get a little extra discount on your ticket for listening to the show. One thing
Actually, that's another shift I've made.
What?
I used to try to sell the event by discounting the snot out of it.
Yeah. You
And I'm
didn't
not
do that
doing
very
that.
much this year.
I'm not doing that as much because I've priced it fair.
Yeah.
That's not to say that, you know, I
There's
don't
not-
offer.
There
people
might not
that-
be a flash sale here and there, but yeah.
But I don't feel the need. What I've actually found with flash sales is the people that buy it were the people that were going to come anyways that just hadn't bought, and that motivated them to buy it.
Yeah.
So it actually costs me money. And a lot of that comes down to, like, you know, I know you have a lot of career driven people who are, you know, not necessarily, or people who are thinking about, you know, who are starting to build side hustles. I'm actually beginning to think less about side hustles and more about side quests, and more about like what can you possibly start doing.
I love the best thing about the World Cup is all the side quests. I haven't watched a single soccer game, not one. But I have watched all of the side quests that all of the people have been doing on social media.
Yeah, and they've all been amazing. And what's interesting about all of those a side quest is they've all been about people connecting with people.
Yes.
I can't stop watching random Brits ending up at a farm to hang out with cows in Texas.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Oh yeah, the Brits and the Scots have been the ones that are, and a couple of the Germans.
I've been watching people experience burn-ins for the first time.
Yes,
because Kansas City, where I'm at, is one of the headquarters cities in the U.S., and we've had 4 teams headquartered here, including some that wouldn't know a burn end if it smacked them in the face, but they had to go try them at some of our.
And you had games actually in Kansas City.
Yeah, we did. I think our last game is tomorrow night. So
yeah, we're running out of games that aren't in New York or LA, but
yeah,
we're getting towards the end of this thing, and that's actually interesting, right? It's like what happens when people, our friend Ian actually went to the World Cup because he's like, when am I going to get to go? And I've always wanted to go. And a lot of what happens is like when you think about going to a conference or when you think about hiring a career coach is when you finally say, you know, enough of choosing everyone else,
Yeah.
enough of following this safe path, and I'm going to start picking myself and actually start doing things that actually help me get where I want to go because, you know,
Well, the idea of doing this stuff by yourself or doing it by yourself with your friend Claude or doing it by yourself but with the 14th $97 masterclass that you bought from somebody, like that's actually not a flex, and it's not saving people as much money and time as they think because they're not learning from the collective wisdom of multiple people, and they don't have someone to help pick them up in the days that they want to quit.
yeah, I had a coach tell me one time, hey, I've been to the thing. The problem is you've set the place up where you're not the smartest. You're not the solution to everyone's problems.
I don't ever want to be the solution to
I don't
everyone's
want to be the
problem.
solution to everyone's problems. I'm okay with you hiring Diana instead of me, right?
Yeah.
Like now, funny enough, I love collaborating with a lot of my people. I will co-coach, and we'll tag team on somebody together because that's fun.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, when you ask, one of the things I'm thinking about as I continue my business and shift and change, I'm not interested in doing anything alone anymore.
I feel that. I won't say I don't want to do anything alone because I do like to do some, but I've
I mean,
been
I'm going to
doing
write
a
a
lot.
book, and I'm going to still do.
Yeah.
I'm
But
not
I've
looking
been
for
doing a
new
lot more
things to do alone, as I guess what I'm
I
saying.
I see what you mean. I've been doing more collaborations lately, just even for lead gen. Yesterday, I started a series that I've been calling Reality Check, where we just kind of tackle mistakes, and it's not by death by PowerPoint. It's basically I go find a guest expert or two. We pick something that people are tripping up on. We spend 15 to 20 minutes sharing our perspective as experts, and then we open up for Q&A. Microsoft PowerPoint has nothing to do with that, but we have a lot of fun and we're able to help a lot of people. And that's the kind of thing that I'm really enjoying doing right now.
Yeah, just because
So,
it's a lot of it is like, this sounds so weird, but is this worth not doing nothing?
do that again.
Is this worth not doing nothing? I know it's a lot of double-negatives, right? But is this worth me actually? I can
Do
watch the next episode of The Mandalorian.
Oh
I
yeah,
can.
I got you.
Ted Lasso's got a new season coming out. It's time to hunker it up. Like,
It's time to rewatch
right, I've
so
got to
that we
rewatch a little bit, right? In fact, I'm one of those weirdos that didn't finish because I didn't want Ted to leave. And so I never, my way of not dealing with Ted leaving is I just didn't watch the last 3 or 4 episodes of the last season. but,
Ah,
but, we have, when even the term side hustle now kind of makes me cringe a little bit when I say it out loud because it's like, I don't want to hustle for anything. I
yeah.
only want to do work. I love the work should feel good. I know people that, but some like smarter people have said that's not good. But man, it resonates with me that I don't want work to not feel good. I don't want to do anything that.
It's very interesting. Um, when I first came up with that phrase, it was because I'd made a Facebook page and I was like, shit, I need a graphic on the top of this. And I didn't know what I was doing. And I found something and played with Canva for literally the first time. And I was like, I got to write something at the top. And I wrote work should feel good. And I didn't even know what it meant. I knew it as an ethos. And it took 5 years to figure out what that was actually going to be for. And it turned out to be the podcast. So we could go all day, but we're not going to. I have 2 questions I want to wrap with. The first one is, What is something that you have either like delegated or just entirely stopped doing in your business that's a little more concrete than I'm not dealing with BS that you're just never going to take back? What's something you figured out? This is not worth my time anymore.
I think it really comes down to the chasing people who don't want to be helped.
Okay.
You know, I'm not. I don't want to spend my time selling people who don't want to be sold or who aren't already sold on themselves.
Ooh, say that again.
I don't want to spend time helping people who aren't already sold on themselves.
Okay. That's powerful.
You know, because it's funny. The last conversation I had today was with our friend who's a sales coach, right? You know, it's like
Julie.
And I was telling her the story of somebody who, I heard back from someone that someone put their credit card away at our event, right? And like that they were going to buy and join the mastermind community, but the feedback from the room was too harsh and my feedback was too strong. And I'm just like,
Okay.
I thought back to the, the movie where you can't, the courtroom movie with Tom Cruise and, you can't handle the truth.
Handle the truth. Yeah. Few good
And it's like, I can't handle people that can't handle the truth.
Yeah.
The reason you work with coaches and you go to events and you buy products is because you want to get help and you want to get help now.
Yes.
Unfortunately, some people go and do these things because they're looking to be validated.
They're looking to be validated, or they're looking at a coach like they look at a Louis Vuitton bag.
As an accessory.
It's an accessory or a status symbol.
Yeah, I'm not an accessory.
I am not either. So,
I mean, yeah, I want to genuinely. My time is limited. One of my biggest struggles is I'm overly generous with my help, but I'm getting to the point where I have less energy to give people who help that I know aren't going to do anything with it.
Yeah, I'm the same way. One of the best things about being in business for a while and having created content is that it makes it easier to just send people that maybe aren't quite sure that they're needing more help or ready to invest in themselves. I can send them free things and it doesn't even have to be mine. Like, I'm not afraid to send somebody something from another coach friend of mine or another resource or a book somebody else wrote.
I actually love the wisdom from the late Dan Miller, who was was maybe the godfather of that your work shouldn't suck, right?
Yeah.
And I always used to bust his chops, and I would bust his chops like in conversations into his face too. Because if he helped somebody with something more than once, he made it a product.
Yeah.
He if he was, and so I'm learning that I've done a lot of that. I'm like, oh, you should go listen to my conversation with Diana. We talked about that.
Yeah.
No, I'm not going to go and find out what point in the conversation we found out.
No.
You can go, you're an adult, go be an adult.
The transcripts on the website, you can have ChatGPT search that shit for you.
Yeah. Like I don't need to, but yeah. And we have an inherent need as humans to be loved and one of the compliments that people pay about the thing is I felt seen here.
Mm-hmm.
And man, that's awesome. But man, I want you to feel seen everywhere.
Right.
Stop going to places where you're not seen.
Stop going to places where you're not seen, and stop trying to blend in because you're afraid to stand out.
Yes.
That's kind of what I say. Well, my last question before we go is, last time you were on your show, I have my question that I ask everybody, which is, what's the worst career advice you've ever received? And you said, just follow the path.
Mm.
Is that answer still the same, or is there anything that shifted for you?
Oh, that's still the worst advice for anybody is like, you know, the flip side is like, what's the best advice, right? Like,
Yeah, what
that
is
might
the
be a
best
good thing. Now
advice?
that you've got repeat people, I ask the same questions at the end. It's like, I've had to learn how to flip the question. It's like, um,
Well,
I
I
think,
asked it that way. I asked that way because I wanted to know, because perspective change sometimes happens.
yeah,
And I wanted to see, and what that tells me that it's still the same advice, and I think it's been a thread through this whole conversation, is that the essentials have always been there and the essentials are the same. Who you're going to help, who you're going to invest the time in helping is the people that are ready to be helped. That doesn't mean other people are bad. It just means that they're not ready yet. So,
yeah. I
what
talk a lot about. I watched the podcast interview with one of my mentors, a guy named Erwin McManus, and he tells the story. I told it at the thing that that rescue swimmers with the U.S. Coast Guard are trained to rescue people swimming towards them,
yes.
and a lot of times we want to save the whole world. Like, we want to help everybody. We want everybody to have a good career. We want everybody to have a business that thrives. We want people to have relationships that thrive. We want them to be happy. But I can only help the people that are swimming towards me.
Yeah.
And man, that has been a significant shift. Um, and to flip that question is like, what's the advice that you wish you had gotten? Is like
Oh,
that I'm like leaning into a lot since in this season is like, my gut was right. Like, believe your gut, believe yourself when you um whether it's about decisions or about people. And that's not to say don't go and get counsel and advice from other trusted people, right? That's not to say you don't need a council of wisdom around you. But a lot of times when people around you, because a lot of the problems we end up struggling with is because we're in the wrong spaces, or the people around us are telling us the wrong thing.
yeah. Which
And
often happens because the people around us are telling you what they think makes them sound good, not what you actually need.
yeah, and a lot of the struggles, when we look at the leaders in our nation and we go, man, why is this happening? And a lot of it is because at a certain point in leadership, it gets progressively difficult to have people around you that feel safe telling you the truth.
Mhm.
And part of being a great leader is allowing that to happen. And I allowed you and Ryan to come um, help me with some things that I couldn't do, or I just, if I did those things, I wouldn't have been able to put on
Do
the
the
best of
things
it.
that are your genius.
Right. And lately I've been thinking a lot about, like, what is my zone of genius? Is that my zone of genius? That doesn't mean, I always use the example of, Walt Disney's zone of genius was being one of the most creative, most curious, influential people of our lifetime. Nobody picked up more trash at Disneyland than Walt Disney.
That's a really great place to stop. That's a mic drop right there. Thank you so much, Terry, for coming on the show again.
Thanks for having me again.
And guys, you should consider coming to the thing.
Love to
It's
have you.
it's a lot
Hope
of
you do
fun.
well.
Happy to talk to any of y'all about it. Terry always is too. That's how I ended up buying a ticket. Listened to the podcast and DM'd him on Facebook asking, "What is this thing?" And he said, "It's the thing." And then we went around in a circle, and then I figured out what was going on and joined the fun. So, have a great day, everybody.